Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Selfless Little Gaming. It is season 2, episode number 7. We are flying through this season. It is Super Bowl weekend. We have the Super Bowl coming up upon us here in 3 days. We did our last coverage of that last week's episode over the Super Bowl. Today, we're going to be talking about current events right now, which is the NBA trade deadline. Before we get that kicked off, though, I am Selfless_Gaming with my co-host here, Little Jacob. You can find me on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch.tv, and Hover as well. Little Jacob, go ahead and take it over, buddy.
Yeah, hey, what's up, guys? Little Jacob here. That's little with the 3 instead of an E. You can also find me on TikTok, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube as well. I have a Facebook channel if that's something you like to utilize, but feel free to reach out to me on those platforms. That's where I'm most active.
All right, so getting started with today's current events, one of the big trades that is going on, or has actually gone on right now, has been between the 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets. There's a lot of movement there from draft picks to players actually like being changed out their current rosters to like where they're going now. So for those that don't know, I believe the trade deadline is at 4:30 when it ends today.
Yeah, it's today.
I want to say it's like 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm not 100% sure on that, but the trade deadline definitely like ends today. And one of the biggest things that has occurred is, pull it up here, the Brooklyn Nets have traded James Harden and Paul Millsap to the 76ers for Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, and Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round draft picks. All I'm going to say is that is a lot for what I think is not such great value, in my opinion. James Harden is one of the better players in the NBA. He's definitely like ranks up there as far as scoring. But I don't know, from an overall like breakdown perspective, Ben Simmons, he brought a lot of size. He had the ability to like play multiple positions from like a point guard standpoint, shooting guard, power forward, wherever you needed him to be. Him and Joel Embiid obviously like had their issues. They kind of clashed with each other.
Yeah, most definitely.
And there was also like drama during like the season. There's some drama last year of Ben Simmons and stuff. So like, I guess it's not necessarily surprising that he got traded. Sixers moved on from him, but the fact that they got Paul Millsap, which Paul Millsap is still a very good player, and he like definitely can play a vital role within a team, but he's also a veteran player. I don't see how him being inserted into that roster is actually going to benefit the Sixers, where they have Joel Embiid. Honestly, I don't think those two are going to play well together because they both are very much like down low type players. I do think James Harden will allow them to spread the floor though a little bit more than what they were able to, but James Harden's also not the best defender either, man. He is kind of like a Russell Westbrook in a way, where he needs to be the primary like focus of the offense, have primary control of the offense. He may be able to do that a little bit more in Philadelphia than he will be able to with where he was at in Brooklyn, with KD and Kyrie Irving and all them. But I don't know, man. I felt like the Sixers have given up a lot for very little, in my opinion. This trade. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, that's one of the things that me and some of the guys from work were discussing is that we felt like, although from a basketball perspective, like who's going to be on the court, the trade might seem like it's beneficial for both because James Harden with Joel Embiid, they can run a really good pick and roll, and then Ben Simmons coming over to the Nets, he could be a really big facilitator for that team with guys like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. But one of the things that you hit on, and I think you said it exactly how it needs to be said. They gave up a lot for what they got. And in the long run, the big picture, going down the road, the person who might have got a steal, the team that got a steal in this whole deal was the Nets. Definitely the Nets. They got a steal in this arrangement. Um, I know the 76ers aren't anywhere near in the same position as the Nets are, so I guess I can understand maybe a desperation move, if you will. But yeah, long term, I think they gave up too much as well. They might regret that going down the road when it comes down to the draft and what they have available. Um, you know, One of the other questions that we are talking about this morning on Sports Center was, will Harden have the worst contract in NBA history? And just because Harden's value, we kind of talked about this at the beginning of the season. Harden's value is kind of hard to determine if it's really that valuable anymore, because it's kind of the same thing. The guy has his on games and his off games. He really doesn't play a lot of defense, at least not as effectively as you would expect or want him to. Um, but he's still somebody that's going to want to be on the floor all the time. He's still going to want, of course, be part of the starting rotation and try to be the star of the team and the guy who's scoring as all the points. We just
Yeah.
kind of talked about that earlier. The guys that want to always be the ones that are scoring and not play a role, but play as a significant player, or the guy that's producing the offense. So yeah, man, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out for them. But as of right now, the Nets are winning this trade, and they're going to make a really strong push coming up here around playoff time because Kevin Durant's healthy. Kyrie only plays part-time, so I'm sure his legs are constantly fresh.
Oh,
And this
yeah.
is exactly what I was talking about earlier in the year when we were talking about how Kyrie wasn't playing because of the whole vaccination situation, but then he is playing part-time at away games, and that's going to give him opportunity to really go into the playoffs and be fresh. So the Nets just became like way better, basically,
Yeah.
is what happened. Like a lot scarier. And if Ben Simmons, ends up working on some of his shooting game, and we see a better version of Ben Simmons in the playoffs, you might just see the Nets go to the finals, definitely, and be able to get past the Bucks.
Well, and I think one thing that's always kind of hurt the Nets
Mm-hmm.
from what they have is like you have Kevin Durant, who has year in and year out always been like either in contention for the scoring champion that like year, or he's like won the scoring title that year. The
Yep.
guy can score ball, like score anytime he wants to. Honestly, he's kind of like a LeBron James. If he wants to take over the game, he can take over the game.
Absolutely.
Kyrie is an amazing point guard. The guy, when he's healthy and he's on, he is, I think, one of the most dangerous players in the NBA. He has shown that from time to time that he can be one of the most dangerous players in the NBA. But where I felt like they always were kind of lacking was more of their like power forward and center positions. Um, from like the lineups that they had, when sometimes with what they would play with, it was almost kind of like you had too much star power out there on the court. And you see that kind of now, not like transitioning fully to the Lakers, but like you kind of see that when you have a ton of star power out there on the court, it doesn't always like gel well together. The fact that you're getting Ben Simmons, who can be a really good player and he can like
Absolutely.
take over. I think he doesn't have to be that guy now that has to be that like step up guy. I got to take over this game. I don't think he was like he could do it in college, but in the NBA, I don't think he's that guy, you know. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of like come to light. That could be where a lot of like the mental health stuff and things come into play is like, there was this big what am I trying to say? There's like this big expectation of me coming out of college to be the next LeBron, be the next like Kobe, whatever you want to say. And
Yeah.
he hadn't lived up to that expectation. And that weighs a lot on a player when they already have like those
Sure.
expectations put on him. And now he's going
Absolutely.
into a system where the guy can just play ball because he's not going to be the face of the franchise. And then the fact they're adding Andre Drummond to the mix, he is a very talented center. That when he was up in Detroit, that dude was a powerhouse when he was at Detroit. And now that he's kind of been like passed around from team to team, that guy can just play a vital role and just play his role. Let everybody else take care of their business. So I agree with you. I think the Nets 100% came out great with this trade. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens moving forward, especially with the All Star break coming up. Everything so.
Yeah. And speaking of the All Star, so how do you like? So here's my thing. I remember before it used to be, the best players of the East and West, and again, it looks like they're going back to this format where it's like I think it's a team of LeBron and Team Curry again. Let me see here. It's
Yeah, I
kind of
didn't.
like they're doing their own little draft tonight. It's like a little draft that they have for
Yeah.
those guys, and they pick their players that they want on their team. Yeah, it's tonight in Cleveland actually. 6:30 Eastern NBA All Star Draft Show. Team LeBron and Team Durant. It's an hour-long special. I don't know how I particularly feel just about like, and I get it. I mean, they're all superstar athletes. Obviously, they're all going to be the best players in the NBA there. Um, and at the end of the day, LeBron and Durant, they're going to pick their buddies and their friends, and that's cool. It's kind of like it's a all pro, all star pickup game is what it is. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of miss the old format of best in the East versus best in the West.
So how do they
Personally,
determine this now? Because I don't really like. I mean, I watch like NBA from time to time. And I follow kind of like what's going on, but I don't watch every game. I don't catch every game like I do football. Um, so do people still vote like who should be in the All Star team? And then now they just allow like the players like based on who was voted for the NBA All Stars by the fans. Now they let the players like actually pick their teams, or like because I don't understand how it works
yeah, I'm
now.
actually going over that information. So it looks like the process starts with the captains. Those guys are determined by all-star voting results. The leader for each conference gets to select his squad and have a team named after them. The leading vote getter in the all-star balloting process is awarded the first pick, the all-star draft. So, for example, I guess this would be LeBron, right? He's leading in the votes for all-star, so
Yeah.
he gets that first pick. Captains take turns drafting from a pool of 22 players voted in the All
Okay.
Star field. Yeah,
Yeah. So it is like the fans still have a say in it, which because the way like things started to become set up with this is like, I mean, it's kind of sucks because like that took away from the fans, but I wasn't sure if like they were
yeah,
still
me
able
too.
to vote, you know? And so if they are able to vote, that makes sense then. Like it is still based off of the fan base and like who they voted for, but then these captains obviously get to like decide who they want. So that, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
A
they
lot of
choose
the, a lot of
from.
the all stuff is kind of a gimmick, you know?
Yeah, and it says here they choose from. So there's 8 All Star starters. Then they'll choose from 14 All-Star reserves. Conference affiliation does not matter during the draft process. So that kind of goes back to what I was saying. It's not really East and West anymore. It's more of just an All-Pro elite player pickup game. Which I mean, I guess that's still cool, and it might just be me, kind of stuck to my the old ways of seeing it being specifically East versus West and those high scoring games, and these are still high scoring games and fun to watch. But yeah, I mean, like you said, the All Star Week is mostly just entertainment and kind of a way for those guys to have fun, and somewhat get a break, right? Some of those guys.
Yeah, like get a break, most of them. Like let them get their legs back, get healthy and everything. Um, let's see here.
So here are
There,
the.
go
Oh, I'm
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, no, I was gonna say. So these are the. I believe these are the 8 starters that we're looking at for either team. Of course, you got Giannis, Steph Curry, DeMar DeRozan, Joel Embiid, Jokic, Nikola Jokic, Jay Morant over there balling in Memphis, Andrew Wiggins from Golden State as well, and Trey Young. Those are the main starters. But I mean, man, you got other names here that are easily starters too, like Devin Booker, Luka Doncic, uh, Draymond. Well, I would say, Draymond Green's a starter. Rudy Gobert. Some really other big names: Donovan Mitchell, Chris Paul. So yeah, there's going to be some big names playing in that game on either side. As of tonight, when they determine who's going where on what team.
Yeah. um, I can't remember if it was like last year or
Hmm.
maybe like 2 years ago. they added a like little wrinkle to the All-Star game. And because I mean, I'll be honest, bro. Like the NFL Pro Bowl and the group text and stuff that we're in, my buddies were like, "Hey man, do y'all check out the Pro Bowl?" And I was like, "Bro, I haven't watched the Pro Bowl in like 10 years. It's freaking soft now." And literally the next day when I said that, the next day I saw this TikTok and it was like the Pro Bowl back in 2009, and it showed like a quarterback taking off running, and the safety comes down and just like takes his head off,
Maxim.
and then like it's like the Pro Bowl 2022, and it shows like Alvin Kamara like catching a pass, and these guys just come up and just hug him when they blow the whistle. I'm like, what is this, dude? Flag football? Like, what?
Yeah, I mean that's all it's become. It's become more of like touch football there. It's like a walkthrough. It's like a practice walkthrough of
Yeah,
anything.
and
It's not
like,
in the same as it used to be. Like I would have more fun watching some Pop Warner kids go out there and lay the smack on each other than watch the Pro Bowl. Unfortunately, nowadays it's just not what it used to be.
well, and like, so like my point of that is getting to the All Stars for the NBA is it
Hmm.
used to be the same thing. It used to just be like, oh, like they come down, each guy kind of gets their like opportunities. They jack up 50-foot 3 pointers, or they just go down an empty lane where nobody's within 20 feet of the basket and do a slam
Yeah.
dunk. And it's almost kind of like a Harlem Globetrotters type game. And well, I can't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago. They implemented this thing in the fourth quarter where at the end of the fourth, they took like whatever the score was and they like cut that in half. And then it came down to like, okay, the first team to reach like, I want to say like the score was like 112 to 110. Okay. So then they
Hmm.
basically said, okay, there's like 12 points. Let's double that. The first team to reach 124 wins. And it was like a sudden death to
Got
124.
you.
And all of a sudden, dude, you had like, I just remember LeBron and all these guys like just kicked it on like it was a playoff game. And like LeBron started like locking down Giannis. And I was just like, holy crap, bro. Like this is an all-star game. Like it was so entertaining because like every possession started counting. They started like really trying. And
Yeah.
it was dope. Like that was cool to see. And I hope they like continue to bring that back because it was like, okay, the entertainment part's of it over, but like now this is where we play to actually see who the champion is of the All-Star game. And it was a cool concept they added. I really liked it. Made it competitive. Made guys have to like kind of try and compete.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun to see that.
Yeah. Most definitely. It's just to be pretty entertaining. All Star Weekend pretty entertaining. Hopefully the dunk contest is pretty entertaining too. And that's one thing that I like to watch the most. Um, but shoot, right now the NBA is at that point in the season where you kind of get a feeling that you know what teams are going to continue to struggle, and even if they make the playoffs, won't win, and teams that we're expecting more of them, and they're just not performing up to level. And that's one of those teams would definitely be them. And we talked about earlier in the year, the Lakers. They have really, they have really shown to be that team that was the could have been the wonder team of yesteryear. It's just that whole team just seems discombobulated still. They just haven't been able to put the pieces together. They're 56 games in. They've lost 7 of their last 10.
Yeah, they're
They're
struggling.
on a 2-game losing streak. I can tell you what, from some of the things I've seen, the reports I saw on TV and all that, LeBron's not happy.
No.
LeBron is definitely not happy. So it kind of makes you wonder, on where he's at with his loyalties playing there for LA. Because man, LeBron is getting older, but he's still a guy that can go anywhere he wants in the league and contribute and help them win basketball games and put up big numbers.
I mean,
Even if he
he
doesn't.
he put up 30 something last night, you know?
Yeah,
Like
and they still lost.
they
So it's
still
kind of
lost
like,
by 2. Like,
yeah, it's
and
rough.
that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier with like Harden being like removed from the Nets and he's going to Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is like giving up actually some more like role players that can like
Hmm.
actually help the Nets out. Like the Nets were doing fine, but you can have too much star power. Like these guys play basketball a certain way, and when you
Yeah.
get too many of them, like they don't gel well together. And like when, for example, with LeBron, okay, LeBron is the alpha male of any team. Like wherever he goes, whatever team he's going to be
Yeah.
on, you can put him and Kevin Durant on the team. LeBron is going to control the show. LeBron's also very smart though too. LeBron knows his personnel. LeBron knows what he needs to do, how things need to work and operate. I think last year and the year before when it was just him and AD, and then you had Rajon Rondo, you had like all those role player guys with them. They gelled well because him and AD can play off each other. You also have your supporting cast. Now you bring in
Yeah.
Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony's purely a scorer, not a defense player, not a rebounder. The guy has done nothing but score in his career. Okay. You got Anthony Davis. Now you're limiting his ability and his role within that offense of him being able to score. Now he's more of a like traditional post player. AD's not really a traditional post player. You got LeBron who's still trying to be the commander in troops, but now you got Westbrook out there who's always been the commander in troops. He's always been the point guard. He's always controlled the ball and the flow of the offense. And
Yeah.
it's like these pieces that you bring in, man, like it's too much like star power. And when I say star power, it's like those guys are the primary focus of any offense they're a part of. You can't have a ton of that out there on the court because it's not going to work, you know? And it hasn't worked all year. Like they're currently sitting at I think ninth in the West, and if things continue, I think there's only 26 games left. If things continue, they're looking at a play-in game to get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yep.
insane for what they have on that roster, but it also makes sense. Like I don't know. We talked about it at the beginning of the year, briefly with like last season's episode. We both kind of said like this is either going to be the Lakers' year and they're just going to steamroll everybody with their roster, or it's not going to work. And it has
Yeah.
not worked at all. And I'm actually very surprised since we're talking about the Lakers, they did not make a trade today.
Yeah. I really thought that their best bet to get something going and something different was to at least maybe trade Russell Westbrook. I'm surprised that didn't happen. I mean, they say when something's not broke, you don't fix it, but it kind of just seems like they're just like, oh, we're gonna give it a chance and we're gonna let it run its course, and honestly, LeBron to me isn't that type of guy to want to stick around. He doesn't have uh another 10, 6 seasons to give a team time uh to make it work. He wants it to work now. And like you said, I mean, with the kind of talent that's on this roster, you would expect them to be able to put it together a lot better than they have. And it's just not working at all. And for some reason, it seems like both Los Angeles teams just aren't who you
Oh
thought they
yeah,
were going to
dude.
be.
The Clippers
The
are bad.
Clippers.
They're struggling.
And I'm just like, man, what happened? And this is not me just trying to throw shade because I'm a Spurs fan, but it's like, man, what happened to Kawhi Leonard? Man, like what has happened to Kawhi Leonard? Um, Definitely an MVP prospect. I mean, he won a ring with of course with the Spurs, couple All-Star games. He goes to Toronto, he wins a championship with them there.
Yeah,
Decides he
you
wants to
know
go home to
what?
Clippers.
This is just my 2 cents, guy.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Ben Simmons. All right.
Yeah.
The guy was like the primary focus for the 76ers. And then it
Yeah.
slowly transitioned into Joel Embiid becoming the main guy, the face of the Sixers and all that stuff. Kawhi, when he was with the Spurs, bro, you had Tony Parker, you had Ginobili, you had Tim Duncan playing with that
Yeah.
guy. That guy was not the face of the Spurs. He was the role player. He was the up and coming superstar, like the great athlete that could just play his position. As those guys left and Kawhi started to become the focal point, he started to fall off. Then he went to Toronto, had a lot of role players around him there and stuff. Ended up doing okay. But then as he went to LA, he's still like the focal point. Some guys they're not meant to be the focal point. They're not meant to
Yeah.
be the guy that you build people around. Like LeBron James is a great example of you can literally put him anywhere on any team. The guy can do it. The guy can make it work. He may not get a championship, but he gets you the playoffs. Yeah, he may be winning the first round of the playoffs. But like, look at him when he was at um, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Okay, he literally took back in the day probably one of the worst rosters in the NBA to the freaking Eastern Conference Finals twice and lost to the Celtics. He lost to the
Yeah.
Big Three, the original Big Three. And then the guy was like, dude, I can't do this on my own. Y'all aren't helping me out. So he went to Miami, teamed up with Wade and Bosch. The first year didn't go well
Hmm.
because that was the first time he actually played with superstars that could
Yeah.
actually help carry a team. And they figured it out that second year. And look what happened when he was in Miami. They went on a tear. He's a guy that's a focal point. Chris Bosch, for example, when he was in Toronto and he was the focal point, Toronto was just okay. They weren't amazing, but then as soon as Chris Bosh went to Miami with those guys, Chris Bosh had some of the best playing of his career because he could just play. He didn't have to be that guy where it ran everything through him. You know what I'm saying? But
Hmm.
like, I don't know. I think like Simmons, Kawhi, um, some of those guys, like they're just not that guy that you build the team around. You need to get another piece in there that you build around them and they support that guy. That's
Yeah.
just I don't know. That's just kind of how I think about it sometimes with the guys because Kawhi Leonard's good, but like yeah, there's no reason for the
Yeah.
Clippers to be as bad as they are.
Yeah. And to be fair, because I didn't know this until I just saw it right now. It looks like Kawhi ended up sustaining an injury that's put him out for looks like what's going to be the year because he's recovering from a torn ACL, and this was back in September. End of September. Man, that's crazy because in August he signs a 4-year extension for 176 million, and then the next month it's season's over. So now one
Yeah, but he
year,
started having a lot of injuries and stuff when he was like with Toronto, and when he
yeah,
first went to the Clippers, he started having like a lot of injuries. So it's kind of like you gotta invest a lot of time into a guy that's got a lot of mileage on him now. You know?
absolutely. He's played. This is season 10,
Yeah.
10-year player already. So, yeah, he's definitely getting the mileage. It's just like any sport. You play so long, you do so much, the body breaks down in ways. Especially basketball, they play so many games, like
Yeah.
year round, even in the off season. Um, but yeah, even when Kawhi was healthy, it kind of just seemed like on the Clippers, he wasn't as effective as he was Toronto, Spurs, and then so like what you're saying is correct. It kind of just seems like there's that downward slope that they
Yeah.
go into. Um, and even with guys like Paul George and them, you know they're great players, you know what they're capable of, but that's just how it goes sometimes. And yeah, I mean, right now, for my team, the Spurs, we're definitely rebuilding. We traded away some guys that have been a key part of our offense, like Derek White. I really liked him. Unfortunately, we traded him uh, to Celtics and another couple players. And I let one of my buddies know this because he's a really big Spurs fan. He really loves the young group of guys that we have and all that. And I just let him know, man, it does suck when the team loses players that we do like or that are good or and all that. But it's like, unfortunately, we're just not. We've worked with the same roster for a couple of seasons now, and we're just not where we want to be or where we should be. We're 13th in the West, and we're looking at potentially another season of just no playoff shot at all because we might not even get to the buy-in. And at this point, with the trades we made, it just kind of seems like we're rebuilding and we did get a couple good draft picks. Dragic, we traded someone to Dragic or to for Dragic. So Dragic's on the Spurs. He's all right. I mean, Dragic isn't what he used to be. He'll be helpful, but I don't know how much of an impact he'll really make. Right now, we're going through this period where we're trying to stack some draft picks and free up some cap space. So I'm not too surprised at some of the moves that the Spurs have made and the trades, but teams got to think about not just this season, but next season and the following season. Like you got to plan for the future, and that's what these trades are about,
Oh
or
yeah.
should be essentially, is planning for the future and not just what's going to happen the rest of the season. Especially with these loaded conferences, man. I mean, there's really good teams that are going to be good for a while. You look at the West, the Suns. The Suns are popping off again. They're 44-10. Booker and Chris Paul in that group, where I would not be surprised if they go straight back to the finals again.
They could.
Yeah, and I think it's going to come down to probably them and Golden State, um, that are going to be in the Western Conference Finals, and I think it would be pretty cool to me, um, for the Eastern Conference to see the Chicago Bulls make it back to the finals, especially with the former Spur DeMar DeRozan. Those guys are just hooping pretty good.
Yes,
I
they
mean, it'll
are.
be tough for them to beat Milwaukee and probably the Heat, but man, it would be cool to see Chicago go back and at least get a shot at another title, which would probably be like what? I mean, that'd be the first ring that they would get since MJ left, so that would be pretty big for them.
Yeah. I did see a thing here where even though the Lakers didn't make a trade today, they will be focusing on the buyout market. So there could still be like a Westbrook deal.
Yeah,
Not vibing with them. The team needs like a point guard, somebody that can like kind of help take over. Could be that type of situation because obviously, with the roster that the Lakers have, they probably don't have a ton of cap space. Stuff with what's being eaten roster. So by them like actually doing a buyout deal with another team could free up some stuff, and then they can get some more role players in there.
yeah,
Another big trade that had occurred is Kristaps Porzingis has gone to the Wizards. The Wizards have given up Spencer Dwindle Dwindle and Davis Burtons. I don't know who those guys are, to be honest with you.
it's all good.
But I know Porzingis going to the Wizards. Porzingis he's probably top 5 center in the league.
Yeah,
Very good. He's really good. But it's really surprising to me because with Luka Doncic, they say it.
Yeah, Luka Doncic. Yeah, I get into that name, but yeah, that man Luka. Everyone knows Luka.
He like it kind of surprises me because he was a good asset for Luka, and the fact that like they kind of gave that up. It's going to be interesting to see like, okay, where are you trying to take this team? Where are you headed now, this team, or what you got? Because honestly, I know Porzingis, and they gave him up for 2 guys me personally I've never heard of. So it's kind of like, okay, like what's happening here?
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely as the season continues, we'll see which trades pay dividends, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying, like what the Spurs are doing. Some teams are trying to stack some draft picks and free up some cap space to see what they can do with the market after in the offseason. And it does suck when you lose players from your team that you like, but you know it's part of the business and how they run things. I mean, for all teams, they got to consider not just the past. I mean, not just the present, but the future, the immediate future as well, and where they want to be at next season.
Yeah. Um. All right. UFC. Let's transition into the UFC real quick.
Oh yeah.
I'll let you lead like this topic of discussion with the events coming up this weekend. Is that right? With the fights coming up, or is that next weekend?
No, it's gonna be this weekend.
This weekend. Yeah. Go ahead and lead us off with that one.
Yeah, man. There's just some really good fights that are coming up. For this main event or for this main card. Some really good fights. It's gonna be a good night. One of the big ones, you got Big Derek Lewis going out there and throwing some hands with a Tai Tuivasa. That should be a really good fight. Derek Lewis, big time heavyweight, big time heavy hitter. That should be a slugfest. I mean, the guy's a monster, dude. Like,
He is a monster, but dude, you never know what Derek Lewis you're getting. Like, are you getting the one that's coming in for a fight and like he's ready to go? Or are you coming in to the one who's like after the second round he's dead, like trying to take his shorts off in the middle of the ring because his cardio is terrible? Like you never know which Derek Lewis you're getting. So I love him though. I like Derek Lewis. I'm a big fan of him. You just never know which one you're getting show up like come fight night. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's gonna be a good co-main event to watch there. I mean, there's a lot of fights, man, that they're gonna happen that day. You got the early prelims, the main event. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 UFC fights altogether
Yeah.
Saturday. So it's going to be an action packed Saturday. I mean, even if you don't watch the pay per view, you can still watch the prelims for free, of course. But I mean, everybody, of course, definitely is excited for this rematch between Israel Adesanya, the Nigerian Nightmare, and Robert Whitaker, who's also a pretty
Yeah.
badass dude himself, man. I mean, you know, man, I don't know. I think it's gonna be a good fight, but I man, I just have to go with the champion Adesanya. The dude is just so versatile. He's so quick and he has a lot of strength. Like you've seen him get tested before, and he's a guy that can knock you out with any kind of strike, whether it's a kick or a punch. He does have a decent ground game. I'm hoping, of course, that they keep it standing up as much as possible and throw hands because the last time they fought, um, it was pretty entertaining. Uh, and Adesanya's motivation is to lap middleweight division on his own terms. I mean, he's there to
Yeah.
just kind of completely clear out and win that division. And I mean, I think that he's the best middleweight fighter, period, that's had him a long time. So really excited to see this fight. And he's really good defensively as well. He's really smart. He's intelligent. He knows how to read someone's body and the way that it reacts to kind of tell how they're going to strike, when they're going to strike, and evade or block. I mean, he's just the whole package when it comes to a mixed martial artist. Um, he definitely has an advantage over Whitaker with the reach, with the 80-inch reach. Whitaker is only at 73, so Adesanya doesn't have to do a lot to keep Whitaker at bay.
Yeah.
Um, he can punish him for trying to come in. If anything, he's going to try and keep his distance as much as possible. Probably not try to get his back against the cage too much. He's definitely gonna make all efforts to control Whitaker and control the octagon and keep him going around. Um, it's gonna be a good fight.
I
Uh,
think Adesanya,
yeah,
he reminds me a lot of a very young Anderson Silva. Like
yes,
he kind of like it's not the exact same because dude, when Anderson Silva was in his prime, that dude was a whole different breed, man. Like when it came to fighting, I ooh, dude, there like Anderson Silva was so technical and there were so many ways that dude could beat you. You literally had to like spend almost a year like schedule a fight out with him a year in advance to like work on everything like ground game all that stuff and Desan or Anderson Sanya or whatever how you say his name, he reminds me a lot of that. Like he has a lot of versatility, like you said. Guy can bring a lot to the mat. Um, I mean, like his significant strike accuracy is 53%. That's pretty
yep,
damn good. Significant strikes landed per match is 3.94. Um, his overall like takedown average, takedown accuracy is 0%, but his submission average is 0.24. So like the guy has that in his arsenal. He doesn't really have to use it a lot, but he has it in his arsenal. But they're kind of close, man. We're looking at the like scorecards and like the statistical categories that they bring. Like they're both pretty close. I don't know. I think if Whitaker can kind of control the pace of the fight and stay within close, because his takedown accuracy is 34%, meaning
yeah.
like
That's something he's good at.
yeah, like 1 out of 3, the dude's getting you on the ground. And you talked about that reach that Adesanya has, so I don't know, man. He's got to definitely keep it close. But these guys, they both have the potential to knock you out for sure. So,
Yeah, and Adesanya, look, just in perspective for people, I mean, 21 fights or total 22 fights, he's won 21. His last loss was March of last year, so almost a year ago. He lost in a title match by decision to I think it was Blachowicz, the champion at the time. But that's the last time he lost, and
yeah,
that's the only loss he's had. Out of all the 21 wins he has, 15 of those wins are by technical knockout, which means, I mean, he's putting the physical whooping on someone. They have to stop it because, I mean, he's just a weapon uh, with his hands or his feet. It doesn't matter. The guy's going to come at you and however he has to. And he just has that style, that kind of switch style. That's what I call him, the last style bender, because he's kind of out there mixing it up. He's having fun. And He's kicking ass, man. So I'm not gonna be surprised to see him do it again. It should be a good fight though, and it'll be a lot closer if Robert Whitaker can really get, like you said, get up in his face, um, and get him to the ground and do some of the things that he's better at. I know one of my friends is really excited because he's actually going to be there in Houston
Oh,
to
okay.
go see that fight. So I know he's really pumped up for that event. 5 rounder there. It's going to be dope. It's going to be title fight. Nothing else you can ask for a UFC pay per view. It's definitely one of the bigger ones we're going to have in a while.
I'm interested to see William Knight because I've actually like my buddy at work. He's talked to me about him a couple
Mm-hmm.
times. He's 11-2 right now, kind of climbing up
Nice.
the rankings. He's not favored in this fight because he's still. I think this might be like either he hasn't been in the UFC very long, like as far as fights, but I'm pretty sure he's one of the prelims stuff. But my buddy, like, I guess he's like known about him or he's heard about him.
Mm-hmm.
He said that he could kind of see him like working his way in UFC. But I mean, card overall is pretty good. There's definitely some good matchups and everything in here. Um, that title fight though, main event, that's gonna be a good one for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's going to be some good more good UFC matches coming up. There's some nice boxing events that are in the works, and they're coming up too. And there were some pretty good, interesting fights that happened this past weekend.
Yeah.
What?
Go ahead, buddy.
Oh no, I was gonna say. So I mean, one of those big fights that I thought was Keith Thurman returned to the boxing world. He's fighting for the first time in 31 months, so a
Wait, he
little over
did?
2 years. Yeah, he sure did. And he fought San Antonio here, very own Mario Barrios.
Yeah.
It was definitely a good fight, a good competitive match. Two warriors in there for sure. But ultimately, Keith Thurman won the unanimous decision.
What was
Um,
his last fight?
Keith Thurman,
Yeah.
I believe it was Pacquiao.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty
Okay.
sure it was I'm pretty sure it was Pacquiao because I can't remember who else he fought before that, um, or after that. I think it was just Pacquiao when he lost to Pacquiao.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean Keith Thurman, who's made some significant marks in for who he has beaten, guys like Sean Porter, Danny Garcia. Um, with Barrios kind of seems like, and don't get me wrong, I always support uh great fighters or good fighters, especially fighters that come from San Antonio, and he's definitely one of the better fighters that has come out of San Antonio period in boxing, right? Because he's made that stage. But it kind of just seems like he's more of a tune-up fighter for the great fighters, that he's not necessarily a great fighter, but he's a really good fighter. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not questioning his toughness or his tenacity or anything like that, but with the results, like the last time he fought Tank Davis, he ends up getting knocked out. Now he's fighting Keith Thurman, who hasn't boxed in almost 2 years, um, and he loses the decision significantly, unanimously. I think Keith Thurman said here that he saw some fundamental mistakes. He saw him crossing his feet over, etc. And then he's like, okay, this is kind of more of like how I see one of my sparring partners or guys that are at my gym that I train with. I'm seeing these kind of younger mistakes or things that are going to take advantage of, and that's what he was able to do. Um, and pretty much Thurman controlled the action and unloaded powerful combinations. By round four, Barrios was bleeding. He busted his nose. Like by the end of the fight, I mean, the guy was pretty torn up, um, and it just seemed like it was too much for him. It's kind of how I felt going in. Like it'd be a good fight, but I thought that Thurman's power what ended up being too much for him. I'm trying to take a look here, some of the percentage of the shots that were landed here. And I mean, of course, too, naturally, it was easier for Thurman to open up against Barrios than someone like Pacquiao, because of the experience, the speed, and the different level. But the fact that Thurman hasn't boxed for more than 2 years and then came back and put on this kind of a display and dominated, it says a lot about what he's still able to bring to the ring as a boxer. And, other guys in that division need to watch out because if Keith Thurman really starts to continue what he's doing, he can put it on anybody any given night. He can knock someone out or at least beat them up. I mean, he landed 27% of his punches to Barrios' 21. Power shots landed 135 to Barrios 82. So yeah, he was definitely taking it to Barrios. I think that dude Mario Barrios will bounce back. He'll probably have to get another tune-up fight or two. I'm sure that he'll come back a better fighter from these most two recent losses. But you know what? And speaking of San Antonio fighters, there is a very big fighter that came out of San Antonio that was now he's very big. He's now the youngest champion coming into his age at 22, dude, from San Antonio. Bam Bam Rodriguez. So that guy is a badass, man. I mean, he came out there, he won a belt. It's pretty impressive for a guy his age to come out and win that championship belt at only 22. It's something that I mean, fighters can only dream of, and you have to work really hard to win a world title at such a young age. So it's kind of like, we have some couple good boxers coming out of the city. So there's a lot of promise for, the future of boxing and what we're able to produce here in San Antonio. So yeah, man, a lot of good stuff happening. Also, Canelo is close on a Triple G 2-fight deal. I
Yeah, I
think that's
saw
pretty
that.
interesting. I think it's really interesting. I feel like Canelo's first fight with Triple G really muttered the line between winning and losing. It's arguable that Canelo lost that fight, but after that, the next fight when Canelo fought Triple G, it kind of just seemed like he really grew and learned from that first fight and dominated him. Because that's how I saw it. It was just a dominant win. I really don't see it being any different, him fighting Triple G again, but it will be interesting to see if it is. I feel like Canelo has grown a lot as a fighter since then, and he's made some pretty significant stops, like with Colette Plant and some of the other fights he's had. That this is gonna just be, it's gonna be his show. It's always Canelo's show, for sure.
Yeah, Canelo's a good fighter, man. Really good fighter. I remember I saw like a video of him. I forget who he was fighting against, but he was like going real slow, like just doing like one of his training exercises of like head movement and stuff. And he was like going like super slow, like very precise with what he was doing. And then it's like they fast forwarded to his fight against his opponent. It literally like what he was working on in the gym. You see the guy like out here trying to hit him, and he's just like super slow, like just right under his punches, and then catches him. I was like, that's insane. Those guys like work on stuff that technical, and it's applied to the ring, and like you see it come live action like that. Like that's one of the coolest videos I've seen of boxing. But Canelo, man, he's good. Definitely really good.
Yeah, I mean, right now, guys, Canelo at the super middleweight owns the WBO, the IBF, the WBA, and the WBC. That's just how many different boxing organizations there are. But he owns all those belts. That's 4 belts. I'm curious to see though if he'll drop down and maybe do. I mean, he's gonna fight if he fights Triple G. That's a middleweight, so he would have to lose some. He would have to lose some weight, do a cut, and meet weight to get down there. But I'm curious to see if he'll ever move down the middleweight from the super middleweight class, which, mind you, it's only like 8-pound difference, but that 8 pounds can be a lot for a fighter to,
Yes, it can.
move up and down from. It's tough on your body. I mean, you can imagine how much of a cut you'd have to do when you're already cut. You know what I mean? You're already in great shape. You don't really have a lot of body fat, and then you have to like try to lose more body weight. You kind of lose some muscle in the process, and that can affect your punching power. But I am curious to see if Canelo would move down to the middleweight class to try for some of those belts. Like I've always wanted to see how he would fare against someone like Jamal Charlo. That would be a really good fight, but it'd be if he's willing to move down to that weight class to do that. Just trying to take a look here to see what other champs there are going right now. Yeah, we'll see if there's another Tyson Fury fight before too long, right? It's been a while since he fought. And he won.
They were actually saying that. What was the article? Let's see. Don't be surprised if Fury Usyk happens in 2022 or Crawford Spence doesn't. What the article reads about. They're actually saying like the Tyson Fury and Orlakstar Usyk could still fight for the undisputed heavyweight title this year in 2022. So could be on the table. It's not necessarily like off of the table. We're still pretty like early on in 2022, obviously. So that technically could happen.
Yeah, man, definitely excited to see what comes out. But uh, just to clarify, guys, San Antonio's champion, youngest champion, Bam Rodriguez, the 22-year-old, he is actually, because I needed to look this up, a super flyweight in that super flyweight class. Super flyweight, man, those guys, you got to imagine the kind of stamina you need to be a super flyweight because those guys are small, but psh, they're full of power and they can throw punches for hours, dude. Like, really.
Yeah. They're like a bunch of little bees, man, that just keep stinging you over and over again. Like it may not kill you and
Yeah,
stuff, but it's annoying and it hurts. So,
yeah, for sure.
um, yeah, man. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on right now, like within mixed martial arts, boxing, NBA for sure. College is wrapping up. March Madness is almost upon us here, like 3 weeks.
Hmm.
A lot of good college teams out there right now. Like, so definitely got a lot of more sports we're going to be bringing to you all. Super Bowl is this weekend. We got it literally in 3 days. Go Bengals, baby! I'm riding the
Yeah,
Bengal
it's gonna
train.
be dope.
Um,
There's a little clip here I'm gonna watch in a little bit on ESPN, but this guy is suggesting probably the most frightening thing that most linemen would want to hear, but he's right. And he says how Bengals can stop Aaron Donald, they have to take the fight to him. Oh,
yeah,
yeah. No, that's right.
yeah,
It's just, we've talked about the kind of guy Aaron Donald is. So taking the fight to him is like, man, I hope you have an army, dude. An
yeah,
army of literally
yeah,
people,
yeah.
because he's a one-man army himself. So, but no, it's going to be a good game, man. I'm really curious to see how the Bengals respond, and how the Rams play. It's going to be exciting for sure.
I'm excited for it, man. I just like we've said previous episodes and stuff. I just hope those games or like the Super Bowl game is as good as all the playoff games have been. Because this year's playoffs scenario and like up to this point, it has just been standing watch. Um, but
Imagine being one of the lucky people who get to actually go to the Super Bowl. One ticket to the Super Bowl, like one ticket is $5,000 for one person, and that's not even near the best seat that you can get. That's
yeah.
probably a nosebleed seat.
Well, and
Um,
that's people like scalping that stuff, man. But they know people will pay it too. Like
oh
they know
yeah,
there's like
to go to the
diehard
Super
fans
Bowl.
out there that been saving up for 30 years to go to the Super Bowl as a Bengals fan, and now they
Yeah.
get the opportunity.
Hey, you never know. That might just be work out for you. That for you people out there, if you got a favorite team, put some money in a bucket, and you never know.
Yep,
You might add up one day.
just keep
Your team
saving.
goes to the Super Bowl, and you're gonna be there, baby.
Yep.
Hey, it ends up being worth it, right?
But if it doesn't, after 30 years, you got a nice little retirement fund.
Yep, there you go. There you go.
Bro, um, there's just a lot of stuff going on right now. Especially within that sports world. This is definitely that part of the year where you have a ton of cross like collaboration or like cross sports of you got football, basketball, you got baseball, spring training getting ready to happen.
This is
Golf is
also a scary
like getting
time.
ready to happen on UFC's year round. Like it's just kind of a crazy moment for sports. And so I feel like when sports really die off, it's like
Yeah.
summer.
The summertime when training camps are just starting and
Yeah.
we're kind of gearing up, that's probably going to be a time where it's going to be having to find more things to talk about sport with. We'll have some stuff to talk about, of course, but yeah, that's kind of when it kind of tapers off the
Yeah.
action, man. And the scary thing is, and I don't want to scare anyone, and I'm sorry, Saints fans, we won't go too far into this because we don't have a lot of time, but man, the season hasn't even ended, and bad things are already happening for the NFL and for players, and
Yep.
dumb decisions. Man, I just feel for Saint fans right now. They lost Drew Brees' retirement. Their head coach walks. Their best offensive player decided to kick someone's ass
Yeah.
and get hit with the charge. And I mean, even if he stays on the team, he's not going to be playing next year. It would be pretty outrageous to me if Alvin Kamara played one NFL snap next season, considering what he's done, and there's proof of what he's done. And to think that there's other players who have missed games for much less. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Almost kind of made me wonder if like Sean Payton kind of knew what was coming down the road, and he was like, "All right, I ain't dealing with this. I already had the whole bounty issue and stuff a couple years ago, and I'm out. See you boys. Good luck. Godspeed." So
We'll keep you posted as that situation develops, and of course, hopefully, with not too many more, but whatever other situations that come up.
Oh yeah, we appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll definitely be back next week. We'll give you a recap breakdown of the Super Bowl. If you have listened to us and you're a sports fan, you'll be watching the Super Bowl. But we'll kind of give you like our breakdown of how we thought it went. You know, what could have possibly happened better. We'll also start breaking down more of like NBA games, where teams are at, what positions are in, who's really got to like fight to secure playoff positions, who's pretty much like can kind of back off a little bit and start to rest up for the playoff push. We'll keep you updated with UFC. Like, there's gonna be a lot of different topics each podcast. So moving forward, like, be sure if you are listening, we'll have a lot of stuff covered in the title podcast in the description, like what's going on. So we love you. We appreciate you. Once again, I'm Selfless_Gaming. You can find me on Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Hover now. I'm starting to put more stuff on there. And Little Jacob, you close us out, bro.
Yeah, guys, Little Jacob, also on TikTok, Twitter, and Twitch. Of course, you can also find me on Facebook. I do have a page there under Little Jacob, little with a 3 instead of an E. Have fun, take care. We're celebrating the Super Bowl. Be safe, you know, all that stuff. Have a good time with your family. And let your boss know now that you're not going to be there Monday, so it's probably a good idea.
I'm actually thinking about, I'm actually thinking about doing some like CEU days, which I can like do through my work. I was actually thinking about like trying to use all 3 CEU days next week and stuff and just get out of there. So yeah, but we love you guys. Be safe. Take care of each other. Love each other. Y'all be good. Peace.